Hello, everyone. Are you guys able to see my screen?
We are.
Yeah, perfect. So first of all, thank you for being here in this session. The title for this session today is One Design System to Rule Them All, and it's a clear reference to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where we had the Master Ring, let's call it like that, and we had all the all secondary rings less powerful than the main one. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Beleza. I'm an Android developer in the mobile apps experience pack in the Motors Group. I'm working at OLX for more than a year and working as an Android developer for more than 4 years. So the agenda for today, we are going to start with the OLX use case. This is just for that, so that we are in the same page and we have all the same context and we understand how OLX is at least organized the products. Then we are going to identify the problems that we are going to share the solutions for. In the third step, I'll share the architecture solution. And last but not the least, I'll share with you some snippets of code, some demos, and basically some practical use cases. So starting with the first one. Not sure if all of you already know, but in OLX we have several products. At least for me, before joining OLX, I didn't know we had so many products. It was a surprise for me too. So basically, these are two of the most known products that we have. For those who don't know, OLX is basically a marketplace to sell used items. Some people sell even new items. Then we have some apps and some products focused on specific categories like housing. This is the game for Imo Virtual, Autodome, Storia, etc. Then we have the Motors Group. This is the Automoto for Poland, Stand Virtual for Portugal, and Autovit for Romania. This forms the Motors Group, and this is basically the group where I'm focusing on. We also have more than 20 brands in total, and this will it will make sense what we are building. It makes sense to think in many of the products at once. So let's try to. I'm going to share now the problem that we saw. So early this year, we noticed that besides having even with the design system in place, there were in the developer's perspective, there were a few problems. The first was that we had, for example, 3 or 4 screens where we would have the same component. Let's call, for example, a button, and this button would be built in 4 different ways. So we should be sharing the same component, but we weren't. So that was giving us lots of duplicated code. This would, of course, this is a really basic example just for you to understand better. We had a bit more complex components than a simple button. And this was a problem because we had so many different solutions that we had to maintain just to solve the same problem in different screens. And then we didn't have a clear ownership among the developers. This was because teams were changing. Even our product was trying to restructure some teams, and with all the changes, some parts of the code started to lose some ownership, and this was really important for us. Along with this, we also have, and I think all developers have that experience, most of them, most of us at least, we have to communicate fluently and clearly with the designers team. This led to many meetings. Sometimes the design system wasn't that clear. Sometimes there were designers that weren't completely aligned. So in the end, there wasn't a single source of truth, and this led to some miscommunication, sometimes some confusion, and we just wanted to clear this completely and be 100%, or at least mitigate the most that we can, the confusion that we could. So, in summary, we had to find a solution to improve the developer designer relation efficiency. We had to find a solution, and this was really important for us. We had to find a solution that didn't have a really steep learning curve for the designers, and we were able to do that. Then we had to find a solution that gave clear ownership, and also a custom solution. While researching for the perfect, at least the solution that we thought that would be better for us, we found out that many other companies already had their own solutions, like in many use cases and things like problems that we are trying to solve every day. Other companies have the same problems too, and we also find that. But we noticed that none of them was good enough, at least not for our use case. So we decided to go at least one part of the system was custom. And this led us basically to a design system, but automated for all platforms, not only mobile, but also web. I'm not sure if everyone is familiarized with the design system concept. I'll give a really brief introduction to what this is. And I'm borrowing a quote that I liked a lot that says, a design system is a set of standards to manage design at scale by reducing redundancy while creating a shared language and visual consistency across different pages and channels. So this is basically a way for us to find a unique language to talk among all the teams, not only designers, developers, but all the others. A design system is also composed by design tokens, and design tokens are all the values needed to construct and maintain a design system. And I'll give you an example. So for example, imagine that we have a big box of Lego pieces, and we just want to pick in each of these pieces to build our structure. These are basically the design tokens. These can be colors, units, object styles, animations. It all depends on the product itself. It depends on the team. We opted to go with 4 of this. We opted to go with the colors, the units, the fonts, and the shadows. This isn't finished. This can change later in the future, but this is our first iteration, and we felt really secure to go with these 4. Of course, these are the foundations of our team, and this is a really big, important, and the most important piece in our system. And what we need is a team that we can inject in each app and automatically apply it to all the UI in the app. In the third section, I'm going to share with you the architecture solution that we found. This will be just a bit more technical, but I tried to give you the big picture. And as you might understand, I can't give you details of the core code that we developed for obvious reasons. And if you have questions, please ask them later. So basically, we can divide our system into 3 sections. The first one is the design team framework. In our case, we opted to go with Figma. Later, these Figma properties are converted to a JSON, and this JSON is parsed in our second section, or the design tokens generator. In this section, we basically had to do a system for each framework. So in Android, we developed this with Kotlin, iOS with Swift, and then for web, I believe they are developing with React. In the third section, we have basically the client app that will use all the generated code, all the components that we were able to create. Going a bit deeper into each of the sections, we have the first one, and this isn't only Figma. In the design team framework, we use, of course, Figma files, and this is the only place where the designer needs to be a bit careful. It just needs to create each file always the same way, following their normal guidelines, at least be aligned. But of course, if we are, they were already organized, and they just need to keep following their own rules. And then the second part is where one of the custom solutions comes in place. We found that there were some Figma plugins already available to convert Figma properties into JSON, but the format that we found out wasn't perfect for our use case. So we decided to go with a custom solution and to create our own plugin, React plugin. This is an example of the JSON response that we are going to generate. The part in the text in bold is an example of the design token name. And if you notice below that you can see two blocks, the light and the dark. And this is exactly what it seems. This is so that we are complying to dark mode and light theme mode for all platforms again. Then we move on to the second part, the second section in our system, and maybe this might be the most complex one, because this is where all the logic lives in, at least the core logic. And in Android, as I mentioned, we used Kotlin. For generating code, we used Kotlin Poet. And last but not least, and this was really important, we decided to draw a diagram, let's call it like that, with all the dependencies, and that could be shared across all the platforms. So for Android, iOS, and web, we are supposed to follow the same diagram. And despite there are some really minor differences, we were able to find a solution that would be good for all the mobile platforms and the web. So we have two repositories, at least two repositories that generate code. We have the first one and the core one that we called the Design System Foundations. This is where the colors, the units, the shadows, and the fonts are parsed and generated. Then we have a second repository that is the Design System Icons. We decided this was totally optional, and we decided to create a separate repository to hold all the assets that we were going to need. And then there's a third repository, and I wanted to highlight that this isn't a repository where we generate code. This is basically where our components live in. These components are built manually by each developer, but they depend on the foundations and on the icons. So these components are not built automatically from Figma. Let's be clear. That would be perfect, and maybe in the future we can think on that. But for now, we are generating the design tokens to be used on the components and directly in each of our product. In our case, which we are working is Automoto, Autovid, and Stand Virtual. In this, we just need to pick up the theme that was generated, inject the project theme, initialize the theme once to load all the resources, and you basically use the components, icons, and colors wherever we need. Allow me to show you some code. I tried to keep it simple. So when we were developing this, of course, I'm going to focus more on Android. For those who don't know, Jetpack Compose is one of the latest UI framework that Google developed, and it's for now, it's the way to go. But as you probably know, we are still as all new frameworks are. There's a migration process, and we need to also comply with some legacy UI that we still have in code. So all this system was built with that in mind. This, for example, let's look at now at the Nexus theme. This is basically a composable function that we call, where we need just to inject the context and the theme ID that we need. In this example, I'll use the stand virtual one. So this is that function that I was mentioning. Inside this, we are going to initialize the theme. As I mentioned before, we just need to call this once, putting in, again, the context to get the assets and the theme ID to refer to which theme we want to load. As soon as as soon as we get these theme properties, we use these properties. In my example, I opted to go with colors, and we basically create the colors. Notice that I'm injecting also the isDarkTheme mode variable. We can get this everywhere inside a composable function. And then we make use of composition local provider to inject our custom colors, our properties. And last, the Nexus theme. We use this to get all the local custom themes that were built before. When we use this, when we need to use, we just need to mention the Nexus theme. That, for those who don't know, in Kotlin, object is basically a static class, and we can just call it anywhere. Of course, according to the guidelines of your team, call this object, mention the colors, or for example, the fonts or the units, whatever you need, and then just refer to the design token. In our case, we are just simply applying the color to the text. Let me show you some demos that we built a while ago. This is a demo where we are using already the JSON. We are making use of the code the system that I mentioned. This, for example, is all the typography, is the typography list, basically with all the properties. Then we were able to create a list of all the colors. Noticed the one that says background brand primary default, the top, the blue one, and that is because you will see that the light color is different from the dark one. And if we are going to the third demo, when we change the theme of our smartphone, if we go to the Nexus color, you are going to see that in the light it will have a blue a bit darker, and in the dark mode it will have a lighter blue. And yeah, we were really happy with this solution. We are constantly improving, and even today we are still building some components. Of course, this is our first iteration, and we still need to improve some of the things, but things are going really well, and we are seeing that we will be able, if things continue like that, we are going to be able to implement this not only in our products, not only in the Stand Virtual, Automoto, even OLX, but also in several other brands that are under the OLX Group. And this is it. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Anyone has any questions for Daniel, feel free to, once again, write them in the chat, raise your hand, post them in Slido. Yeah, now it's your turn and your time. While you will think about it, or while a first question doesn't pop up, I'll ask one question myself, I guess. Okay, so we have a question before. So how do you handle dark mode?
Sorry, could you reformulate the question?
Yeah. When I say how do you handle, when you declare the colors, do you declare one-to-one mapping, like light to dark? Like basically a color token, and the color token has two nuances. One is light and one is dark, or you handle it in the theme framework.
Yeah, so let me show you. So basically, when the colors are coming, when we read the properties from Figma, these two blocks are generated, the dark and the light colors, right? So this is inside our JSON that we are going to parse and generate. Later, when we use this in the code, sorry for then.
Okay, so it depends on each platform or whatever the solution they integrated, right?
Exactly, but this is, we noticed that the way we built this, we just needed to adapt in each platform to inject basically the dark theme, and based on that, on how the system chooses the dark theme, we are going to choose. Of course, there's logic under this line, and we are just injecting if the theme is dark or not of the device, and based on that, we are simply making an if else where it says if true, pick the light color, if not, get the dark one.
Yeah. For example, iOS can handle this automatically. That's why I asked.
Okay.
The system can handle, if you declare a color either light or dark, it can, if it has two nuances, basically when you switch the system, it's going to do the switch automatically. So you don't have to do this. That's why I asked. Thank you.
I'm not proficient in iOS at all. I remember looking at the iOS code and noticing exactly that they could reference that everywhere, right? You can pick that somewhere in the code, anywhere from the code.
Thank you.
We have a question in Slido. Yeah, so the question that's here right now is, what was the main struggle in building this solution so far?
I would say there were two. One, the first part, that is to build a diagram to align with all the platforms. That was the part that took more time. We wanted to build this framework. We didn't, fortunately, we were working in a team that didn't make a lot of pressure on us. So we could build this slowly with all the solid foundations that we wanted. So I would say the hardest part, or the most struggling part, was to build the diagram, and maybe the generating part, because we never used that before, none of these frameworks. At least I'm talking for Android, of course.
Yeah, that's super amazing, and I think it's going to be even more cool when in the future we are integrating these in other stacks. We'll try to see like all the comparisons between all things fit and how it will be from Android, from it'll be in front end in React, or it's going to be in iOS, or well, we'll see, I guess. But it's definitely super exciting to see this project growing and checking what's coming next.